Are you the first actor? They want to be entertained.
All right, I welcome you all to the Finance Committee meeting of February the 25th, 2015. If I could have a roll call, please.
We have present Joan Fons, Tom Worthen, David Hurd, Ellis Bailey, Donna Bronk, Bonnie Jean Coutuli, and Jeff Langen.
Okay, do I have any citizens' participation at this time? Beating down the door to get in. Okay, I'm going to jump down to our discussion. We've invited the school committee here tonight to present its budget to the finance committee, so if they want to come forward and make themselves comfortable, I'd appreciate that. I do believe we were all provided with a copy of the original budget presentation. Does everybody have that?
No.
A short version? That's beautiful.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Michael, do you want one of these?
Sure.
Oh.
We all see that?
Thank you.
Okay.
Go.
Okay.
When you're
Okay.
ready.
All right, well, thank you very much. We appreciate the time here. And what we thought we would do is just briefly go through our budget presentation that we presented for the open hearing, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. If we don't have the answers, of course, we'll get back to you in a very timely manner. As we began our budget process, we met and came up with some budget guidelines. And so on the slide 2, you'll notice between the administrators and the school committee, we outlined what our priorities would be as we developed our budget for FY16. Of course, our goal at any budget presentation or budget putting it together would be what's best for kids. And our students are our number one priority, and we developed our budget with our students in mind. We also understand the fiscal priorities and responsibilities of the town, and so as we developed our budget, we worked to maintain those priorities. In our budget, we noted some capital needs, and over time, you know, we certainly are looking at a multi-year financial plan. When we work to build our budget, we need to maintain the contractual obligations as well as what the state and federal government outline. And so when we're talking about this, what we're really saying is there's a number of unfunded mandates that we're legally mandated to meet. when we look at our special ed and alternative programs, we understand that we need to improve the effectiveness, and our plan, our budget will reflect that. And as we move into the core curriculum in the 21st century, we certainly need to make sure that our curriculum materials are relevant. So on the next page, slide 4, you'll see in the past 3 years what our budget has been. And then in FY16, our budget request is $27,842,986. That includes net and non-net.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just want to make the point that this is the superintendent's request, not the school committee's request. The school committee has not
It's not
officially
official.
made a request.
Okay.
Excuse me, could you define NSS and non-NSS?
So the Department of Education divides our expenditure into net school spending, which in theory is the expenditure directly related to the provision of education, and non-net school spending, which really is, for us, it's just transportation, pupil transportation. So in theory, you don't have to provide transportation to provide education, so that's why they made that distinction.
Thank you.
Surprised me there, Michael. The budget drivers, as we were building our budget, here's what we had to keep in mind. Because of contractual obligations, the amount for the budget was $630. If we, the following positions into our budget, 130, and then out-of-district needs, 365,000. So these are expenditures that we don't currently have in this year's budget. We added this table just for information as far as our staffing, and you'll see in FY14, we were a total of 369 employees, roughly 370. This year, we're at 350. That includes bus drivers?
That does not
include bus drivers.
So this is just this just is the information we report to the state 2 times a year. We have to report to them certain staff. It doesn't include certain groups of staff, including cafeteria workers, custodians, and transportation. Why we've still got it up here is it's useful because you have a consistent report going back multiple years, so it's useful to get a historical perspective. I mean, we're working on building a reliable picture of what we have in those other groups as well, but we just don't have that same historical data. But it still shows, and these are also FTE, so they're obviously our actual number of positions is higher than that.
I would stop right here and ask if there are any questions over what we've gone through yet that we could answer.
I think the big question, I'm just going to go ahead and ask it, and because it's going to get asked, and it's already been asked by the public at large, and that is $130,000 for additional staffing when we have cut staff last year. So we're going to need a real explanation as to why these positions are being filled at this time, what's the necessity for them.
So you're asking me why we added the 9 positions? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
That's different from the 130,000, just so you know. So
Yes.
Okay.
that 130,000 is positions requested in our budget for next year. But what I think you're referring to, as the superintendent alluded to, is the 9 positions we've added.
During the
since last
school year?
Yes.
I think both.
Yeah.
I mean, what the public wants to know is if we dropped positions last year to meet budgetary needs, how, that's their big question is how do you add full-time positions, and what is the reason for needing additional positions at this time?
Okay, so let me take it in 2 steps. Let's take the first one would be the 9 positions that were added last year. Last year, we had we had contractual services with an agency that worked with our special ed students on various levels. That cost $266,970. At the time of last year, we decided we weren't really pleased with some of the services we were getting. And this was at the end of the school year. So we made the decision to eliminate the contractual services. When we did that, we had $266 on top of what we had cut. And with that, we knew that we had to add back positions to support the students in which that we were getting through contractual services. And so we were able to add back the teachers at a savings of $43,365. So we really saved money by making those cuts in the contractual services. When we made the employee cuts, we cut roughly $260,000 in benefits. And with the 9 employees that were added back, the contribution was about $37,181. So we feel like the positions that we added back were due to the contractual cost. We still needed to offer that support to our students, but we were able to do it in a more efficient manner by adding employees versus paying for contract services.
Go ahead, Donna.
I have a question. How many of the positions that were filled were grant people that you write a grant and you get staff and then you end up carrying them on? Now, it would be helpful if you would clarify how many of these grant people get taken on full-time afterwards?
None of the 9,
None of the 9 were grant people.
no.
So, I mean, just to that, your broader point about that you receive a large amount of money that allows you to do something, and that often through a grant, and that often involves adding staff. But when the grant dries up, then we will, unless we can find other grants, those positions have to get cut, because then they come into the LEA, and unless we can make the case for it within our budget, those positions are cut. And actually, when we post jobs, if they're subject, it always, it specifies on there, this is subject to continuing grant funding, should it be grant funded. But,
Okay.
it's a
That's
challenge.
one question.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but it is a challenge that we try to work with.
Okay, so that takes care of the 9 positions there. So can you explain to me what this additional staff requirement, what's the push for this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. If you look at the 2nd grade teacher and the teacher specialist, when we look at our class size numbers from 1st grade going into 2nd grade, we know that we have a bump. And right now, and with our kindergarten, we anticipate there will be a bump in 1st grade. So it would be really easy if we could just move from 1st grade to 2nd grade. But because of our numbers, we do not believe that we will have that ability. If we're dedicated in keeping our class sizes in the low 20s, then we're going to need to look at adding a 2nd grade teacher. Because of contractual obligations as far as providing preps, et cetera, then we are at our max in the ability to provide the contractual obligations of preps with our current staff. And so we really need a specialist in order to provide what we're bound to by our union agreements. The part-time tech support, right now, we have a half-time person at the high school that's a paraprofessional that oversees our tech department for the high school. We're bringing in the PARC assessment, which is the online replacing MCAST. We're doing many, many, many more things wirelessly and through technology in our classrooms to deliver curriculum. Therefore, it's essential that we remain up online and have the ability to resolve any issues in a very timely manner. Right now, we don't have a full-time person, and this would expand our part-time. The final piece, the part-time ELA, I talked about unfunded mandates. This is one of the unfunded mandates that's set by the government, and we have to provide services to our English language arts learners. Because we're having an increase in our English language arts population, we need to increase those services, and that's something that's mandated. Of course, there's no money, but it is mandated.
Do you want to explain that for those of us who
Sorry.
don't understand the language you just did?
Okay. English language, somebody that doesn't speak English as their first language, English is their second language. Many times we have students that come to us that are non-English speaking, and we are mandated to educate them, and we are not given any kind of reprieve saying, okay, in a couple of months that they can come into school once they learn some basic English. They enter on day one regardless.
Okay, I just wanted the folks at home to all understand
Yeah.
that language. Go ahead.
And I would just add, so you may have noticed, if you add up the amounts in those columns, that adds
Yeah.
up to more than the increase that we're asking for, that was in our original budget. And that's because we're also making efforts to reduce our costs elsewhere, including cutting a position. So, although we've asked for additional staff on that line, we are also proposing to cut a position elsewhere. So that's not the net increase. Net increase would be lower.
Could you elaborate on the last line there, the increase in out-of-district and special education costs and,
Yeah.
and the whole out-of-district stuff?
Yeah, actually, do we have a slide on this? So actually, this takes us on to our out-of-district tuition costs. So there are some students who are enrolled in Wareham Public Schools, but who we are not able to provide the level of service that they require because they have special education needs that we are not able to provide. And in that case, those students are placed at providers out with the district. That's why it's out of district, because they go into special education schools and institutions. And they charge us a daily rate or a monthly rate for the provision of those services. And and as it says there, the cost of educating those students, both the cost of educating those students and the number of students has increased considerably in recent years. And we've seen a huge jump coming from 2014 into 2015, and we're anticipating another considerable jump going in from 2015 to 2016.
So these are special ed students?
Yes.
This says 7 additional. How many in total are there?
So there
It's on there somewhere?
37 at the start of the year, but it has actually.
I'm on a different page.
It's a little over 20% of the population, but only a small portion of that end up out of district.
You know, and I would also,
Out of district, we have to transport and do everything to
Yeah.
take them there?
we do.
Yeah.
The other thing is, there are times that students that are foster care children are just brought into Wareham. They're not originally our students, but because the foster parent lives in Wareham, and if they're out of district, we are then given the cost. And we have no say whatsoever. We are just billed. And that has happened to us numerous times this year.
I think it also needs to be understood, another part of our frustration, and this is across the Commonwealth, is the fact that the rates that these people are able to charge us are totally out of our control. The state literally, they apply to the state, and the state approves whatever rates they think are appropriate, and the increases over the time that I've been studying them, and because it's an issue for the Association of School Committees in general, it's not unusual to see year after year after year 7% increases in these rates. Well, 7% may not sound like much, but it's actually a very high number when it's year after year after year.
Is it in comparative to what we're what we are paying per student for our own students? Does it even compare to that, or is it ridiculous?
It's much
Oh,
higher.
no, no, no.
Much,
You-
much,
It's,
much higher.
it's different.
It varies from, let's say, $50,000-$60,000 a year to $250,000 or more a year if they're residential, meaning they literally live at this place where they're educated. So, and we never know whether the student that's arriving is gonna be a $50,000 expense or a $250,000 expense.
I see, okay.
I think it's just worth saying, we're not sitting on our hands with this, and we are working with a special education department trying to identify students who we can bring back into the district. Because there are definitely students who we will never be able to provide for, but there are some that we believe we do have that we will work with the providers and work with the parents and the student and bring them back into the district to help reduce our costs. So we have a number of interventions planned each step in the special education program to try and bring those students back.
The other thing you should be aware of, you may have heard of something called the circuit breaker. It sounds like money coming from the state, and it's great, right? There's only one problem with it. First is, you don't get any circuit breaker money until you have the expenses more than 4 times the average cost of educating a student in the Commonwealth. Now think about that, because if you're less than average, you have to spend more than average just to get any reimbursement. Then, the amount of reimbursement you get is always a function of how much you've already spent. So in a sense, the more you get, it means you've spent that much more just to get the money. And finally, the percentage that they give you back has varied tremendously over the years. Maybe it's in the low 70s, maybe it's in the low 60s. It varies tremendously just based on what the legislature authorizes. So the circuit breaker, yes, helps, but it's really an indication that you've spent a lot already, and it just ameliorates the highest spending, and it doesn't kick in, and that's key, until you've already spent 4 times more than the average.
And it only applies to that which you spend over 4 times?
Correct,
Yes, exactly.
correct. You've got the deductible, so to speak, of 4 times, and then it kicks in.
Then it kicks in.
Hey, Dominic, you have a question on what we've talked about so far?
Yes,
Go ahead.
to you guys out there, through Madam Chair. Am I reading this right? So, in 2015, 37 students gonna cost $2,166,000 to educate. Am I reading that right? It says number of students
Yep.
receiving tuition out of district,
So
37,
Yeah.
correct? And then up top, it says that out of district money, general fund is $2,160,000.
Yeah.
That is the cost.
It's
of 37.
it's actually, that number is the October 1st number. So we have to report to the state our numbers of students every year, and we generally rely on the October 1st. However, as you can imagine, throughout the year, we'll have kids end up going out of district. So it will probably end up closer to 50, 52 students, I think, by the end of the year. Because we'll have some kids who go out for 6 months and come back in, and who, as the superintendent mentioned, post October 1st, we get a phone call from DESE and from the Department of Education, and a student is now out of district who we had no record of before.
Because that amount of money per student is astronomical
Yeah.
compared to what the price per student is
Yeah.
normally. And that's, this is a state mandate, this is something we have to do. Is it considered a mandate type of payment or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Federal or state?
We get billed this, right?
We get billed this.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't a matter of,
58.
we
I
don't,
understand,
oh,
so I'm
it's
saying,
just a bill.
It's a mandate, I mean, every mandate, there's been a lot of
60
things are
grand.
mandated that towns haven't been paying for. I'm not saying you shouldn't pay for education, that's not what I'm trying to say.
No.
No.
Mandates, when the mandate becomes
Unreasonable.
unreasonable to affect more than it's helping, to me, it seems wrong. And I'll leave it at that.
What we've also been doing is looking at the various disabilities of students that we send out. And then we've looked at, okay, what can we possibly do to build our programs in-house to support our students, and so we can keep students or bring students back. And that's a process that we're looking at. We have a program coming to the high school next year, and we have a program coming in the pre-K the lower elementary next year, because we know we have some students with disabilities that normally could have gone out, but because of these programs we're putting in place, we anticipate being able to keep our students in district. And that's our goal.
You should understand, the reason this problem exists, there are two reasons. This didn't exist when I was on the finance committee, okay? It exists today for just two reasons. The Chapter 70 formula didn't allow for the significant expansion of these costs across the Commonwealth. Just didn't allow for it. It built in an inflation factor, but the inflation has been far greater than the Chapter 70 formula allowed, and therefore every district across the Commonwealth is feeling it. Some feel it more than others, depending on the wealth of the community. But frankly, 80% are really feeling it. Top 20, they don't care. The other reason is the out-of-control spending on health insurance. Those are the two reasons that we're sitting in this room trying to figure out how to balance a budget with the schools being a major problem. In a sense, if you want to think about it sort of mathematically, your problem is the school budget. Our problem is the special education budget.
That's what's crippling.
Right.
That's what you feel is crippling you.
Yes. And health insurance, the two things combined.
Well,
Everybody's got health
Yeah,
insurance.
yeah.
Health insurance is crippling the world. But,
Yes, exactly, but it ripples down,
right.
and since we can't print money, since Wareham dollars haven't been accepted yet around the community, the buck stops with you guys.
Well, Madam Chairman, go ahead. I guess, you know, coming from the private sector, I was just talking to someone today, you know, we took a job in the 80s, a really good job, and your Blue Cross Blue Shield was right there for you. But I can remember leaving the workforce a few years back, and I can remember, you know, we had to pay 40%. And it was health care for a family is over $2,000 a month, well over $2,000 a month. We're gonna, somehow the contract negotiations are gonna have to, we can't substantiate in the schools and the municipalities, we can't go on like this anymore, because healthcare is killing the municipalities and it's killing the schools. It's killing the taxpayer. So I don't know what the answer is gonna do, what the answer is here for this particular situation. However, I did have the opportunity to spend some time with you, my friend. And you enlightened me tremendously on what you're attempting to do. I tripped in your office by accident, and I came out feeling really good about what you're trying to do. And what he essentially told me was basically they're trying to talk with the parents and these kids that we're sending out of district and that. Maybe if we can sit with the parents, like you said, the first place is try to set up a relationship with the parents and say, hey, look, wouldn't your child be more comfortable, and we can offer you this and we can offer you that. Maybe that'll help in your situation. And I applaud the way you're looking at it, because I had never heard of it before. And I apologize, I don't even remember your name.
So my name's Mike McMillan, Michael McMillan, but I believe you may have spoken to one of my colleagues as well.
Who? Mark
Blake, yeah.
Maybe it was Mark.
No, maybe it was me. Let me try.
Same accent. Are you from
No,
the charter?
Michael's accent is unique.
Yeah.
The charter school?
Yeah, it is,
Are you
yes.
from the charter school?
No, that is Mr. Blake.
That's okay. This fellow was from the charter school. Okay, and I couldn't believe what he was explaining to me what you're trying to do. So maybe you can explain it to, because I mean, I as a parent would rather have my child being educated locally, but you better show me how you're going to do it as well.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I don't know what the answer is for the healthcare, but we're either going to have no teachers and no municipality workers.
There is one problem that is somewhat unique, in meaning that we have to focus on it here in Wareham, and that is, as much as we would like to be as cost-effective as possible, and you and you made me think of it with your comments, we're also competing for students.
Oh, I
So
know.
every time we shrink our budget and send a message that we can't afford this and we can't afford this, et cetera, parents are listening. And if they have the choice of sending their kids somewhere else, then all we've done is fueled their thinking in that direction, and that costs us thousands and thousands of dollars every year when a parent chooses to go somewhere else.
Well, unfortunately, you're talking about people who can choose to send their children where they want to,
Yes.
okay?
No.
But,
No.
excuse me, hold on a minute. However, the town of Wareham is required to educate every child, regardless of ability or disability.
Correct.
Okay? So competing for the extras, even out-of-town students to come in or come back to town, all right? It's still extremely difficult. We have to live within our limits to educate them all. So we're being pulled from both sides.
Yes.
But it's the perception. It's the perception. People are going to Old Rochester. In Wareham, I'm sorry, I'm a big advocate of the Wareham education, but we need to sell it. Because people, well, all of Wareham's money's going to sped. It's not going to the gifted programs. We don't have cultural programs. What kind of musical programs do we have? That's why they're going.
Go ahead, Dominic.
Madam Chair, that was my other question. What is that costing us? I don't know if I see a chart, if I'm just missing it. Of the people, what it costs us to send not special needs children, but your average, not that anyone's average.
You're talking
the
school
normal
choice?
child,
School choice, yeah.
the normal child
School
to go
choice.
to another school,
Oh, the school choice.
another school choice. And I've heard that through the grapevine, that that's a growing number.
Yeah, so
And is there stop
I
limits
don't
to
wanna
that
fit.
number? You know, what?
so the way school, so just, if
Go ahead.
so the way school choice works is anybody can choose to go to school outside. So Wareham, we receive our Chapter 70 funding from the state based on our foundation enrollment, but that is the number of students who live in Wareham who we're responsible to educate. And then they deduct from that number any student who's actually been educated elsewhere, and that's so if someone goes to Old Rochester, they take that money out of our Chapter 70 and give it to Old Rochester. And that number, the number of students who have been educated elsewhere has gone up significantly, and that number is there, and therefore the corresponding
So
amount
it
is
doesn't-
deducted from there.
Through you, Madam Chair, so it doesn't cost us to send them to another school, we just lose the
We'll lose it.
money, okay,
So
so,
it's-
but it's not costing us money.
It
Well,
costs
We're
us.
not getting
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Except in it, so if you have a class,
We're not
You're
receiving the
not getting the
money.
value to
But
pay the
we're not
overhead.
paying to educate the child either.
It's,
well,
Right.
exactly.
But I know
It's not coming to us.
It's not coming to us, but the child is needed, I understand that there's money needed for the overall picture, which that's deducting from, I understand
It-
that.
So like,
But
if
it's
you-
not costing us anything.
yes, it is.
Right.
Yes, it is.
Well-
Because every time one of those, I mean, we're up to what, 190 now or something like that? I mean, it was in
Yeah,
your
yeah.
full report, 190 kids. So that's, we're not quite at 10%, but we're about 7 and so forth. That's 7% that needs to come out of every other line in the budget because you can't support admin anymore, you can't support buses anymore, you can't support, you have to take it out of all of the other lines. And some of that stuff depends upon the volume underneath you.
Pretty
I mean,
soon
you're-
Michael will come without a tie.
And how many of those students aren't going to the technical schools? You know, more just because of they feel that Wareham High is not the place to go. I mean,
Yeah,
if a
but
child wants to
that's-
go to a technical school, they have their own reasons for going to a technical school rather than an education school. Maybe they don't want, or they can't, or they don't feel that they can, or they just want to take a trade. What is the difference number between the technical school and the number that you just said? That it's just going because they feel that Wareham High is not as good an education as whatever town they go to? That's the number I want to know.
It's about 50% more.
About
Go to Upper
50%.
Cape. Go to Upper Cape.
So if you got
And
100
that-
students, 50 going elsewhere, 50 going up at Tech. That's bad.
No, no, no,
Cost. The cost to educate at Upper Cape is about 50% more.
I know that, I know that.
But
So,
But how many,
let me
how
try and
many
understand,
kids?
can I just,
Right.
I want a clarification
Yeah, yeah.
here. 190 go elsewhere.
yes.
Does that include the ones that go to Upper Cape?
No.
See,
No.
no.
See,
It
no.
doesn't, it doesn't.
No.
So you got your special eds, that's just $2 million here. Then you got another 190 that go someplace else.
Yeah.
And then you got, what, 50 that go to
Upper Tech.
Upper Tech?
No, we have
What, the
about,
numbers?
Yeah, how many?
So-
Two
no,
hundred and
it's lower than that.
thirty-two.
Yeah.
240.
235?
I have less
232.
trouble with the vocational school
me too.
because of the fact that, and it kind of, in my view, your customer, you want them to either, if they're going to go on to college, they want to be educated and so forth. My suspicion is, and I have no data, so it'd be worth us to get the data, a lot of the 190 are parents who are concerned about getting their kid into college and so forth. The vocational ones are folks that are going to probably stay in the area, and you want them to have a good vocation, because that's their shot at middle class. And then I noticed that you're adding things like culinary skills and so forth, because that's another local job. There's not going to be a lot of jobs here. You've made it very clear to me that there are no Googles or anything else around here. You're right. The ones who go off to college and so forth, they're probably going to go live elsewhere throughout their career and then maybe come back when they're retired. That's the world I grew up in. I mean, I just had my 50th high school reunion. Everybody, I mean, there's probably 90% of us went to college or entered. Not every, we all didn't finish, but they were all over the country. And some of them are going back. If they're not going to Florida, they may have a place. This is in New Jersey, but I mean, there's a group there that's the expectation. That's what they do. I would be concerned as a parent, for example, knowing, for example, my son is a nerd and he writes software in Seattle. I mean, that Wareham probably couldn't prepare him to get into some of the colleges. That would be a gut feel, no evidence, no data.
Okay, so I guess what I would tell you is we are certainly not sitting idly by
No, I'm not saying you are.
and not preparing our students. What we have now, we have a STEAM academy at the middle school for 7th. We'll have it into 8th grade next year. That's been grant funded. We have a 3D printer that our students work with. We're exploring bringing an academy in for our high school students that would be an IB/technical institute, and we're going to be holding our own, creating our own technical opportunities for students. That will be all grant funded or foundation funded. So we know we have a mission to provide our students in Wareham with a quality education if they want something other than what we currently offer. We understand that, but we also feel like what we offer in our pre-K through 12 is a very exceptional program. Unfortunately, we've gotten a bad rap. We believe that it's a misperception, and we certainly invite anyone in to observe our classes, to talk with our kids or talk with our teachers. But we're very proud. We continue to grow, and we will make a difference for our kids. We fully intend to make a difference in our community.
I couldn't agree more, and I interact with students a lot in a variety of ways. I can guarantee you there's a student who came out of my tennis team who's a freshman at WPI studying software engineering, and she is going, she will be, the people in Seattle, and my niece works for one of them, the Amazon, the Googles, the Microsofts, they'll be lucky to get this person who graduated number 2 from Wareham. So there's great education going on.
I'm dealing with perception, and perception is reality in the
You're
eyes of the
correct,
beholder.
but it
That's the
sounded-
problem.
But it sounded like you had that perception, and what I want to say is, I understand why you might have had it, but it's incorrect.
But I got it. I've only been in town for 3 years now.
I
I got it from people who've been around here for a long time, and I got it from other folks. So, I mean, that's what,
I agree, I understand.
Okay,
But then I
let's get back-
certainly would
get back a
invite
little
you to
bit
come in.
topic.
Yeah,
We're
sorry.
we're getting off, a little
Yes.
off on topic. Tom, you have a question?
I have two things. On slide 7, you ought to run a bar up the right-hand side of the number of students so that you can see how the staff versus the population goes. And the other thing is, well, I'll get into, you guys got more to do. Go ahead. I'll come to it later.
Okay, first off, I'm gonna let you finish the last page of the capital priorities, what we're talking about, and then I'll ask a question after that.
So obviously, capital does not feature within our operating budget request, so this doesn't fall within the 2.7 million. But we just thought it was worthwhile, just while we're here in front of you, and also when we're in front of the school committee, just highlighting the capital priorities that we're seeking to get funded, working with the capital planning committee and the town administrator. So our buildings are in need of a lot of work and a lot of capital investment. We have made an effort to reduce, we've reduced the number of buildings, and that helps us to reduce the number of capital needs, but we still need to replace a part of the roof in Deacon's Elementary. The internal public announcement system needs to be upgraded urgently. We have some asbestos tiles that need to be replaced. Also, the boiler and heating system, both at Minot and Deacon's, need to be improved. Fire alarm panel needs updated, and security cameras. So I think, these are just the priorities of a long list that we have of capital needs. And it's just worth saying, so we're in the process of submitting an application to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, who also just helped us just about finished replacing the high school roof, and we got that through 67.5% reimbursement from MSBA, so that's been great. So we hope to repeat that with the Deacon's corridor roof and the heating system at Deacon's as well. And we're putting on a more extensive application for the Minot Elementary School.
Madam Chairman.
The boilers will have a payback, right?
Yeah, I hope so, yes.
Yeah,
That would be
that was a special program.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna ask you like an overall question, because I think you really hit the nail on the head for me when you're talking about, just talking about perception, and I constantly hear about, well, if you're not putting money into it, people are saying, well, we're not spending enough money on our kids. Why do we want to send our kids there? So where do we come up with something in the middle? How do we make people understand that we're giving them the best education that we can give, that we're not going to just dump money into it, because number one, we don't have the money to dump, okay?
That's the wrong way. We're giving the best education. They also, them and their family, the students and their families want to get out of it.
No, what I'm trying to say
I believe
is,
that
it's
we're
not
offering
all
top
money,
grade-
it's not all money.
That's right, it's not all money, and I believe that Wareham High and these people here and the teachers are offering a top-class education if you want to get it.
I understand
Money does
it.
not make you smile.
That's my
So,
point, Dominic.
that's what I said.
That's what I'm trying to get at. What I want to understand is, how do we educate the public as to, what we're providing? How do we change that perception of, just because we don't have another $1 million to put into the program, how are we providing them with a very good competitive education?
Sure, I think one thing that we have to do is work collaboratively. And we have to work in unison. The old saying is, you have to go in the same position, the same direction. So if we're not all committed to saying, we're going to do the very best for our students and our community, and we know we're going to have naysayers no matter what we do, but we have to be committed to be efficient and effective. And I also challenge people to come and visit the schools. I mean, I have heard horror stories that go on. Well, when I investigate, that's not the truth. It's kind of like the rumor mill that we used to play when we were small kids. The other piece is, have we had some discipline problems in our school? Absolutely. But I will tell you that from the top down, we're about business. We want to educate our students, and the students need to be committed, and they need to work with us, not against us. We're happy to work with any student, any family, but we're committed to doing what's right for students.
Your job is to educate our children.
That's right.
Parents' job is to parent them.
That's
And you
right.
can't be expected to be the parent and the educator, and that's what people are expecting of the school system, and that's where things are going wrong.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, but we have to work together.
Yeah, right.
But again, I would welcome anyone to come through our schools. I think we have some fabulous programs. We have some outstanding programs getting ready to launch for the next school year that are revenue neutral. And we're going to continue to examine our budget to become efficient and effective and doing what's right for kids.
Okay, can I, Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Jeff. Question, go ahead.
Okay. No, you've made a very clear case as to what the issue is for sure. I mean, if you look at the two items are there, the healthcare, everybody's got, and they know that, but the other one is first of all, the special education, which then gets into, that's money that comes out of educating everybody else, which then leads to some of the exit issues and people moving and so forth. So you can see a domino effect here that has to be taught to, I guess, the rest of the town, because we have to face the fact that if you look at the 5-year plan that was put together last year, basically the schools get, after the fixed costs are paid, 1% more per year. That's how it works out. And I went back and looked at where we are and what was in the budget, and that 5-year plan, we're still dead nuts on it. So, and everybody else, I mean, there are departments in the town that we just went through, they're not going to get anything, or a few percent, I mean, 0.5% or something else like that. So what we're faced with is this is the pile of money the town's got. That's it. There is no more. So I mean, it's between a rock and a hard place. We've used that on this on this panel before. I mean, are we alone with the special education thing? What happened? I'm going to ask a question that is on people's mind.
No, we're
What happens
not,
if we just say no? We're not
we
going
would
to do
be
it.
taken to court.
But we're not going to do it. Don't do the mandates. There are people, and I've heard that too. Don't do the mandates. No.
We can't do that.
What happens?
We would be sued and we would lose.
And if we lose, what happens?
Not coming out
We're-
about mandate.
We have no money.
You know what, we're mandated
I'm not.
to do
I'm
what's.
doing what if, because whenever you got a problem like this, you got to look at and decide that that's not an option.
You have a
For-
moral responsibility.
That's right. And we have a ethical responsibility to do what's right for kids.
I'm not
And-
disagreeing with that.
And so our job is, how do we do it effectively and how do we do it efficiently? And how do we meet the needs of our kids in district? And I think that's really where we're at, is we know we have students that have some significant needs. But we need to build our programs in-house so we can keep our kids in district. And by doing that, we would save a considerable amount of money. But to do that, it takes professional development, it takes personnel, and it takes some time. And so in the past year and a half, since Mr. McMillan and I have been here, we've been combing through the efficiencies and the inefficiencies and starting to make recommendations on what's working and what's not working. And I will tell you, while I think our job is very difficult, I think your job is even more difficult in trying to decide how do you even up the money for all people in Wareham. I certainly have deep sympathy.
I think, Jeff, you wanted somebody to say something?
I'm a newcomer to Wareham. I didn't get here until '96, and I'm serious.
You're like a babe in the woods.
That makes me a newcomer. And I have been privileged to interact not only with a lot of kids, but a lot of parents. And I said to a parent recently, you know, it almost seems like Wareham as a community has an inferiority complex. And that's really sad. They just don't, too many people feel that their kids aren't going to be as successful as Old Rochester kids, that education therefore isn't as important because they're going to end up, you know, doing whatever. And if there's one perception I would like to eliminate, it's that. Because I just got back from a trip with a bunch of kids. There is, and we were surrounded by places far wealthier. Our kids are inferior to nobody.
Exactly.
But the perception in this community is somehow they're not worth investing in. And I say that, and I really do mean that. Because if you look at the hard data, and this is perhaps my biggest frustration, if you look at the hard data about wealth in this community, we are as prototypical of Massachusetts as you can get. You took a pie chart of Massachusetts and income, and you took a pie chart of Wareham and income and all the different brackets, right? We look like Massachusetts, but we don't act like Massachusetts.
I have to disagree with you and Jeff. I mean, I've just gone through and I'll have the data. I'm happy to provide
Jeff,
it to
can
you.
you let him finish his?
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Remember that this is a meeting, not a discussion around the breakfast table.
I don't
Thank
want to, debate data, okay? Sometimes you can get, I wasn't looking to prove anything, as a matter of fact. I was looking to get information, not to prove my point. And I was actually surprised at the data that I got. But putting that aside, the perception problem is not only that going somewhere else, you're going to get a better education. It's also that this community is somehow, in general, inferior to surrounding communities. It is not. I have lived all over this country. I have visited all over this world. It is not, and we need to correct that. And if we do, we'll solve multiple problems. Having said all that, I'm actually optimistic because I see a stabilization in the exodus of kids. By the way, if you add that 190, put Upper Cape, because Upper Cape has fluctuated over the years. I've studied it all the way back to the late 90s. It's been up and down, and we're not anywhere near the peak. It's been higher, okay? But if you look at that 190, you add all the kids that could be educated back in our system. Add them all back, okay? Pretend they're all here. You're nowhere close to our peak. The number of kids, simply literally demographically, in Wareham and in Massachusetts too, as a whole, is shrunk. And that's also part of the problem.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Go ahead, Tom.
Just to continue to jump on this horse, your market is the parents.
Yes.
And you want a waiting list to get into Wareham from the
Absolutely.
whole South Coast. And that's what you want to figure out how to do. My suggestion is that you do some surveys, you get some marketing help, and tote the Wareham banner in a lot better way than we're doing it now.
Here,
But I agree with 150% with what you just said. But if we were a business, and I know Don thinks we are, okay? But if we were a business, we would not compete the way we're being asked to compete, okay?
That's what you are. I mean, this is the problem you have, and you gotta go
We
after.
would compete by leveraging as much as possible to make the product as good as it possibly can be, believing that that means we would sell more products and ultimately the payback would be there. Unfortunately, you guys are in a position where you can't help us do that in terms of dollars and cents. And that's why this is an intractable problem.
We certainly can make suggestions as how the split is between the town
Yes, you can.
and the schools.
Yes, you can.
And that's maybe an education that's gotta come across the town, as
Fair
to
enough.
how they're spending the money,
Agree completely.
what that mix is.
True.
and keep selling that STEAM program, because that is unbelievable. And we need publicity on that, and those kids, I can't say enough about the program. I just
By the
think
way,
it's awesome.
Our superintendent also started dual enrollment between the middle school and the high school. The 8th graders who are in the 9th grade, they're doing fabulously well. That's another thing that is
Good.
unique.
Keep challenging them.
Mr. Purdy.
Just to your earlier point, Ms. Cattouli, and your current point, Mr. Worthen, about selling the schools and doing a better job. And I'm surprised it didn't get mentioned here yet tonight about how we got a level 1 high school. The schools that these people are choosing, these districts that the people are choosing to go to don't. Bourne doesn't have a level 1 high school. That puts you in the top 20% of the state.
Old Rochester slipped to number 2.
You know, and that's the high school, you know, and I, like any parent in this town, I wrestle every year trying to figure out if I want to keep my son in this district, because I know my son has plenty of friends, too many friends that are in other districts, and I talk to them and I ask them all sorts of questions, and he's in 7th grade. His peers in these other schools, they've got Spanish, we don't, you know, but they don't have dual enrollment, as Mr. Sweat just mentioned. You know, in 8th grade, that gives them a head start in high school.
Right.
They don't have a STEAM academy. And these are the selling points that help me keep my son in the district. But every year I revisit that. And I guess, I'm sorry, what's your name? No, next to you on your left.
Jeff Langdon.
Jeff, sorry. No, I'd agree with you. I don't think we're typical of Massachusetts either. I mean, I don't think Massachusetts has 54% free and reduced lunch. But frankly, I watch just about all of the, I'd go so far as to say I watch all of the finance committee meetings. I learn more here than anywhere else. Honestly, I love what you guys do here. And you're very refreshing. I hang on every one of your words because you do your homework, you do your research, you ask the tough questions, and these guys kind of give you a hard time about it, but keep up the good work.
We just gotta calm him down now and then, because he's just long-winded.
Notice I can't, yeah, so that's
Wind them up. You gotta wind them down.
another cup of coffee.
So,
Can I just make something relative to what was just asked before?
I'm gonna give you 2 minutes, go.
Okay. We had an override, it didn't pass, we needed it. You've proven that, I think we've seen it everywhere. So the question that I would follow Tom's advice is, the next time we have one, Peter, close your ears, because he did, the next time we have one, we need every parent of every child in this system to get in that voting booth and vote for it.
Wow, he did that in under, what, 30 seconds?
Oh, and challenged.
God, all right, go.
There is one piece that is relatively unique, which is, yes, my colleague here is correct. We're sitting at 54, 55, maybe even 56 low income, okay? That describes the school population of students. That does not describe the town.
Right.
We cannot ever forget that. For a variety of reasons, that makes us relatively unique. In fact, I recently, while I was in Costa Rica, believe it or not, looked up the data for the entire South Coast Conference in which we compete. We are at 56 low income, and the next highest number is about 34%. Okay?
That was my point.
Right. So we are educating different kids, okay, which sometimes means they don't come with as high a vocabulary and all the support structures that perhaps exist in other communities. But that doesn't mean the community is poor. The community is not poor. The community is still an average community, and it needs to support those kids.
You're preaching to the choir. We have
All
to
right,
convince the voters.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask a question about something specifically, and what I know, the town administrator's in the back room over there listening along. And that was you're gonna half-time IT person now, we're looking for a full-time? Have we discussed across the board with the school and the town? Because IT is a big priority on the town side as well. Is there any chance of coming together and sharing a person, or a half a salary maybe?
Sure, we've had these conversations, and we continue to have the conversations, because we know efficiency is what we need to shoot for. So yes, we are exploring options to, with various services.
Cool. Okay.
I guess I would just like to say one thing. I know some of you have visited our schools recently. Others of you might not have had the opportunity. And as you make decisions going down, I would be more than happy to show you what students in action, so you can see some of the great things that are going on with our students. If you would ever like a tour, please call me. Be happy to do that.
Do you have any specific questions? Okay, so how do we close the $2.2 million gap?
Yeah.
I asked that 5 minutes before we got in here.
I know you guys got your work to do with the school committee. And we're gonna absorb what we've heard here. I'm not gonna make anybody stick their neck out at this point and make any sort of commitments, but obviously the doors are open, the communication is there, to sit down, negotiate, and figure out how we're gonna close the $2.2 million gap. All right?
We appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for doing a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Can you hit the lights back on your way out, Joe?
We're trying to read the dark.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. All righty then.
Jeff, your hat.
That's a nice hat.
Bonnie?
Yeah.
You don't need money out as a business.
Want me to go back? Yes. You need me to go back? Yes. Okay. All righty then. I'm gonna jump backwards to citizens' participation.
Uh-oh.
I had a special request from a citizen.
I'm sorry, at the time you brought it up, I wasn't thinking in the way of what just came before me, but I want to share with you because I think it's important based on the conversations of a few minutes ago. Yesterday, I received a call from the Boston Globe. They have a reporter who's doing a story on if you came back to Wareham for one of your class reunions, would somebody recognize you as being someone important? Because we all know when you come back after 20 or 30, 40 years, you go, gee, who's that person over there? Because I don't recognize them. So the focus is on who is coming back to Wareham for their class reunions that are important. I didn't even have to think for a long time to come up with numbers of people that they could do stories on. When you talk about are the students in Wareham getting an education, they absolutely are. And that is proven by the alumni that have gone on to Duke, Harvard, Brown, Colby, Dartmouth, Worcester Polytech, the dual enrollment programs with Bridgewater University. Of course, the first person that the reporter mentioned was Gina Davis. And I said, as well as I love Gina and the success that she's had, I can think of other people that have come out of Wareham who would be easily recognized by the success that they've had. And the first one that came to mind was Brian Atwood. Brian headed the Agency for International Development. That's the government agency that funds every country in the world. He headed that agency for many years until he got into a disagreement with Jesse Helms. We look at Dana Molifaria, who came from Wareham, who is now and has been the president of Bridgewater University, and where he brought Bridgewater State College to Bridgewater University, and what he's done for the educational field in this area. So I have to say that, and I sat back there really saying, do I get up and say something? But I'm very passionate about the alumni, and it was one of the reasons that I started the Alumni Association 20 years ago, because the people in this community need to see we do educate our students very well, or they wouldn't be getting into these schools.
Absolutely.
The competition is tough. They have tough competition, and if they didn't have the ability and the education coming out of Wareham to make the grade, they wouldn't be getting into those schools. And the students from Wareham do very well afterwards. So I'm very passionate about that, and I agree with you. I don't think we educate the community to the degree that we should by showing those successes, but there are many, many students coming out of Wareham who have been very successful in their own businesses, in things that they've done over the last 20, 25 years. So we do educate very well.
Yes, we do.
So how do we?
Thank you. Okay.
We need your help.
All right, we need to get this information out,
We do.
We do.
That's exactly what we need to do.
Not a problem.
David.
public relations.
Public relations.
All right. I guess we will bring the town administrator forward now. You can stop playing. Unless you're playing Candy Crush, I'll give you another 5 minutes.
What's that?
You doing Candy Crush over there?
No,
No? All right.
let's count the zombies.
Oh, okay.
Well, I had fun during that.
Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Dominic, I collected these for you when you left the other day.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Do you have any budgetary matters to discuss with us first?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just giving you the December revenue and expenditure report. I don't have the attached memo to it, but we can run down a quick list and you can always review it.
Okay.
You can ask questions later. I never forget about you, Kelly.
I did find my official copy of the warrant pinned to my office at the Elks Club. Guess he doesn't want to try to find me.
So this is not a new document to you. You know, they're all expected percent expended year to date is 50%. So in running down some of the items, we know transfers will require. One is from inspectional services, from salary down to expenses, and that's because the building commissioner, David Moore, is paid as a contractor, not as a salaried employee. The library, what the library director is using, I believe the expenses are being paid via the monies that she had left over, whether it was state aid and such, and she'll then request a transfer from her expense line up to salary, which is, if you realize, that's why roughly the $200,000 request is for FY16 is truly level funded, because they've been using grant monies for everything else. Okay. The police is one that's a concern. We had the buyout of vacation pay, which is now that's a one-time hit, and it's now brought it up to about 49.9%. We've had one officer retire in January. We just had another officer that's leaving for a federal program, so I wish him a lot of luck. And it's it's a nice thing that they've chosen from within our excellent ranks of personnel. It's just too bad we're losing a person.
Who is that?
I don't know if I should say it on air.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's probably it's not a big deal, but
Well, good luck to them.
Don't be the one to get yelled at.
yeah, I'll be the one in trouble. So. And he's got federal powers behind him sometimes soon. So really, in going through there, we'll have the placeholder on the warrant for the transfers. We're having as far as the health care goes, the line will have plenty of money within the line for that. However, we're doing the audit of the healthcare trust fund we should have that done before April. We want to have that for town meeting. That way we know if we have to transfer any monies into the health trust fund. So, so I'm just going through there. I mean, there's not much that's changed throughout these documents.
This is up to what date?
I'm sorry, what?
December.
Yeah, that's through December.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm just going over the snow and icy line. I'm like,
Yeah. No, that was the good old days.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, it's a difference of really it was 6 weeks, but 6 to 8 weeks makes. I was excited about the money we were going to have left over for it to go towards free cash.
Uh-huh.
That's probably why we got all the snow. So in really going through it, there's not much that's changed. The unemployment, again, we're still trending high on that from the people that have been laid off, but they should be coming off now, and that will whittle right down.
What is the veteran services thing? Is that because it hits it all at one time?
Yeah, Veteran Services, we have one immediate payout at the beginning of the year of $23,000.
Okay.
And the rest of it is actually gets paid out in veteran benefits to our veterans in the community that qualify. So over the last few years, no matter how much they've requested, it's been actually going above, which, it's some concern because we do rely on their figures that they provide us from the Veteran Service Agent. But right now, when you take the 23,000 out of there, we're still a little bit over, but we'll continue to track that. You'll see on the, oh shoot, I didn't put the numbers on here, but the second to last page, on the front of that page, if you see the $750,000 transfer out, that's a transfer to stabilization fund. Although it was coming from free cash, you do list that as an item on there, just so you can track it. And you'll also see on there, we've included for you the water pollution control, the expenses, the personal services, any of their articles and capital as well. Because I know it's something that's been requested, so at least you have that on the monthly revenue and expenditure report. The last two pages are the revenues, so you can see what the original budget was. And this budget is tied to the recap, so how we set our tax rate. So you'll see some of the local receipts are different than our actual budget because that's how the DOR had established it during the tax rate recap. So you'll have the original budget, the year-to-date revenue, which will give you a percent of the budget, FY14, same period year-to-date, and then FY15 versus 14. The only problem with our revenues is a lot of times it just depends on when the commitments were sent out and items such as that. So when you have things in the same month, it could actually cross over.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
Derek, the asterisk, through you, the asterisk on the boat excise tax, is that supposed to tell me something?
Yeah, that's from when the commitments are sent out, and I believe the year before, they were much, much lower because the commitments were sent out almost towards the end of the fiscal year, so that probably just hasn't been changed. Probably carry over from one of the old sheets.
Thank you.
We took actually took the hotel motel and the meals tax and looked at them from the DOR website because it'll tell you the actual distribution. So while it looks like the hotel motel tax is 50% left, it doesn't have, less, it just doesn't have the second quarter distribution in there. It hadn't hit our books yet for December.
You expect that to catch up?
Yeah, so they were interesting hotel motel tax. First quarter was down 1,000. Second quarter was up 1,000.
Oh.
As to why, yeah, that's. We anticipate the Marriott to open up April 1st, so that'll give you as April, May, and June. We did not budget those revenues, so whatever, yeah, so You know, because when we were creating this budget, as much as they were saying early spring, we couldn't commit to that, so, yeah.
They already had $250,000 worth of bookings.
Yeah, is that what they said?
That's what they said, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm happy about that.
And everybody's still eating out.
Yeah, meals tax. It's going to be interesting though to see what happens for this quarter, for January, February, March, as to whether people, whether it's going to cycle. You had the times when the people were stuck in their house, but were they so sick of going home and didn't feel like going to the market or anything? Did they go out to the restaurants? Did they order out? It's really, it's one of those things that fascinates me. So I just would like to see what the 2 quarters from FY14 versus 15 is. So you can imagine the conversations I have at home with my wife, if that's what thrills me.
That Burger King is down this month.
Yeah.
Yep, All right.
So, I mean, this is important information. It's, there's nothing that's really glaring at us right now. The rentals, I'm going to grab, and go through all the contracts we have, because rentals should be what they are. I want to go through it and see what has changed. I know we rent out down at Tremont Nail, the metal building that's rented out to Atlantic Boats, and we signed a new contract with them, but that shouldn't really have reduced at the end of the day. So just want to see what's going on with that. But besides that, I mean, we're still doing well on the licenses and permits, fines and forfeitures. Investment income's down a little bit, but it could just be from what we've expended out on so, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when our returns right now are, 30 basis points or 40 bips, yeah.
What about Medicaid reimbursement?
That's based off of the school, so that's, we're reimbursed from some of the costs, and we submit that as a revenue. So it would be interesting to hear from them. I talked to Michael, we didn't think that there would be anything lower. It again could be when the reimbursements are coming in. And that's what's frustrating with this. It isn't a true cash flow for us. We don't have commitments in this, so you don't really see what the outstanding receivables are or anything like that. So that's where, I know, Tom, I probably could do that for you if I wanted, but. You know that we talked about, we had the large subdivision, which is why you'd see that was redeemed, and that brought in over $600,000 worth of tax title revenue. However, probably between the increase that we had for mid-year for school choice sending and for the snow and ice, that's wiped out. So it's a good thing and a bad thing. Thank God that we were able to have that property redeemed, or we'd be in real trouble.
Which property was this?
Was,
Pine Tree Estates.
is that off of Charge Pond, or is it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Pine Grove Estates.
Yeah.
I know, I was gonna say, I'm in the old pine tree.
Pine Grove,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So, and, it'll be excellent. They're going to, that's been since the 80s that we realistically have not been receiving any sort of revenue from. So, it's going to be built out, and there'll be some new growth out of it. And the sad thing is, we hope that it's all retirees or people without children. So.
We need to advertise that too.
Yeah.
Okay, then. What else you got?
We are working together with the school, and, the superintendent, the business manager, myself, and some of our staff looking at what can be done. We're looking at the renewals from the Mayflower Group. We know that this, for FY, so we know that it's a 3-year buy-in, because we didn't have the money to put up front. So the first year was the 7.5%. Second year, which would be FY16, is a 5% I believe that there's going to be an increase of about 4% to the active employees. However, a reduction of 5% in the cost for the retirees. And we do have a large amount of retirees on there. So with the 5% right now, the 5% buy-in, we're looking at between a 2.29 to 2.39% increase. So 7.39, with that being part of that being the buy-in, really is not the worst. It's truly, if we didn't have the buy-in, it's truly a 2.39% increase. And considering we were projecting when we were self-insured 11% increases yearly, that's what we'd experience. It's pretty darn good.
How come the retirees are getting a decrease in 5%?
It would be just whatever the experience is overall from the Mayflower group. So whatever the history's been.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not us reducing it or anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, we're not giving anything away, Donna, don't worry.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Is this a change then from your 5-year plan because of the fixed costs? Does it affect that then?
It will affect that going into the future because we didn't know if we were able to get into the Mayflower group before. You know, it's sort of the shame of it. We did the OPEB, we actually had that funded last night, and, you know, people are saying, well, if you had approved the override, they wouldn't have done the stuff. No, this was all stuff we were already working on, you know.
It was a combination, and we tried to educate people of that it wasn't just more money, it was a combination of doing both.
Right.
Trying to figure out how to get more revenue in, but still cost-effective changes as well.
Right.
And we're gonna continue to do those things.
Yeah, we absolutely, even, no matter what happens, you have to do that. It's what is expected of you. It's what our jobs are, so.
Yeah, I think we're learning an awful lot in this process. Maybe it's because for me it's the first time, but I think if you go back in, we would do things that the override a lot differently, and we recognize the amount of education that has to happen before we do that. And also, I think that the amount of money that has to be invested if we're going to be the world-class town that you want. So don't lose that thought. Could you explain to me, while you mentioned in our previous meeting that the school was 7% over some agreed upon number. What is that?
It's not agreed upon. It's the minimum net school spending, so
What
the
is that?
required spending that the state sets forth. So they have the old budget amount, and then you'll have whatever the increase is. There's formulas, and you can go through the Chapter 70 website for that. So the state's saying, at a minimum, you need to fund them at X amount of dollars. And that includes the in-kind, so it's their budget, also the health care and the associated costs that the town pays on their behalf.
It doesn't relate to the student count, head count.
It relates per student.
Yeah, I
money.
would have to, you know, my bag's over there. I thought, there's an
Maybe we-
actual formula for it.
Yeah, there's
And it takes you you have the Chapter 70 aids in there, then you have what the community contribution has to be, and then you have your total minimum net school spending number.
So that's some number that we, as a finance committee, would say we have to meet that, at least the minimum.
Yeah, I mean, you can spend under it, but once you hit 5% under, you start getting penalized, and frankly, I don't think you want to be advertising that you're spending less than what the state's
but-
saying. Yeah.
I mean, just so that we all know what the groundwork is, I mean, the framework of what we're operating within. So they're over, but then we just learned about all of the issues that are probably driving them over. I don't even know whether they're in that formula or not. So, I mean, it's incredibly complex.
We have always, the town has always exceeded net school spending. Not necessarily by much, and we've always been told it's never enough, okay?
By whom? The state?
By the educators and the powers that be. that
Okay, that's a
it's
big
never enough, okay?
Sounds good.
I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but, I mean, it's never enough. I mean, they could always do more if they had more, okay? But there's always been this discussion, too, about the in-kind money, is that being applied towards the net school spending? And we know that it is, even if it's on one side, or if it's on the town side or the school side, it is being applied in some way. But if you want to look at your comparisons as to what we've been compared to around us, we've also been told that it's not enough there either, right? That Wareham isn't giving enough of some of the other towns in the area, okay?
Relative to them.
Right.
We're comparing to the other.
Right, I
The
can remember
Bournes and the
Mr.
Carvers and the people like that.
Exactly, I can remember Mr. Paulson back in the day bringing in a chart of, he was very big on how, is it the amount of money or what a teacher gets paid and how good the education is? And the question was always being asked here, because we listen to what the public talks about, okay? And the public talks about, are we overpaying our teachers? Okay, are we getting the good education for what they're getting paid? So Mr. Paulson went out and brought the data back, okay? And when he compared the towns around us, where some towns were getting higher wages, their test scores were lower. So was it the amount of money you were putting into it getting you a better education? I don't know.
That's,
Go ahead, Tom.
Derek, where's the EMS revenue?
You don't, that's the offset receipt, so that wouldn't be done till the end of the year, of what you're bringing in. But I think Dave said, he gave us the estimate at the all-day hearing,
Yeah,
didn't
he
he?
did.
Yeah, you were gonna provide me with the revenue like
Yeah.
you did last year, but we haven't got that yet.
No.
That's okay.
But you know it every month, or you know it every, I mean, you can track it on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think we're about,
You always get
878,000 through January
We're
or
getting
such.
$100,000 a month, it looked like, that's what he.
Yeah.
that's what it was, yeah, that's what you said. Yeah, you found that the other day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it doesn't show, it isn't here yet. Or
No,
it's-
because that's not really the general fund revenue on the, we would have to just create another segment for it.
Well, doesn't it go back into the general fund, or do they
At
turn
the,
back?
at the end of the
Yeah,
year,
yeah,
if
yeah.
there's anything left over.
And they turn a lot over, back to us.
Yeah, I mean, we've increased we're doing almost what you're supposed to do, if you will. We're reinvesting in them with the ambulances, with putting the part-timers on there so we can run 2 ambulances during the same shift, capture those revenues and such. And then, so we're gonna do the initial investment, which is, we don't have that opportunity through the general fund, and the offset receipts, and the water pollution control. We do have those opportunities. So we're investing in the capital, in the personnel, so that we can earn more revenues on there as well. And ultimately, besides just the revenue, making this community safer by having more abilities to have ambulances running and not requiring them from outside the community and such. But we all know that with the community our size, I mean, just spaced out, if you have something down in, you have something over in Shangri-La or in another incident over down in Swift's Beach, there's,
Miles,
yeah, it takes a long
You
time.
flip a coin, right? Is that
Yeah.
what you?
Well, we find out who has better insurance. Clearly that was a joke.
Plus, he's right.
I had an incident.
All righty then. Do you have anything else before we start going through these articles?
Excuse me?
Do you have anything else before we start going through these articles?
No.
Okay. All right, so let's go through the articles and see how many the town administrator can clear up for us, information-wise.
Excuse me, Bonnie.
Sure.
Last year, we had a discussion about whether or not the finance committee should vote on the articles before the board of selectmen had. There was some concern about doing that, and we found that a number of the articles had been changed by the board of selectmen before they came, or after they came to us. So again, do we want to vote before the board does,
I've always been of my personal opinion that our vote is independent of whatever the Board of Selectmen chooses to vote, okay? I mean, we're charged by charter to evaluate each article and render our opinion, okay? I think that what you're speaking of is that some of the explanations have changed, after we've taken our vote, and that's something that we're working on, collectively, that will be provided with those explanations before we take our vote, okay, as they should appear up there on the screen, okay? But I have no issue of taking the vote before or after the Board of Selectmen. I choose not to pay attention to what the Board of Selectmen vote, because it's my own analysis, so.
What about the amounts, what about the articles that we don't have an amount for?
We don't vote until we actually get the amount,
'Cause I-
yeah.
So it was
There's a lot of them.
it was the wording that tripped us up a lot of times.
Yes, yes.
And we're gonna ask for final wording before we.
Yes, the town moderator is working, with all of the powers that be to this, to, create one document that contains all of this information in one document, so when it's complete, then it will be, distributed to all of us. Okay, but it is a work in progress. So these are just, basic explanations and anything that the town administrator can
Yeah.
clarify for us at this point. Article 1 is the election of officers, that's fine, there's nothing there. Article 2 is recurring business. These are action that it needs to be taken every year so that the town entities can actually do business. You out of power again?
I'm so cheap on the town spot.
Madam Chair, would you like to vote on these as we go on?
Yeah, these two we could probably just vote on.
Is the Board of Selectmen changing the way they vote favorable action and such?
Discuss that.
If you're gonna speak, I need you to come to the mic, because my director over in the corner gets really angry when people can't hear him.
Who you got hiding in there tonight?
Same old thing.
Oh, Bob, who yelled at me, it goes all the time. Peter Titlebaum, Board of Selectmen. There is some discussion, I know at least one of our members is unhappy when we vote 050 favorable action. He thinks that's confusing and looks foolish, especially in print. Even more so than when we say we voted favorable action 050. So I think there is some thought to either voting favorable action as a majority or voting unfavorable action as a majority and putting it in that way. But that's something that I believe the chairman's gonna need to talk with you folks about.
Okay.
And I don't think we've even decided exactly what format it's gonna take.
We can always change it once, we can all decide afterwards. if
Yeah,
we
I mean,
wanna
it's
do the
gonna be
same
con-
wording, yeah.
Yeah, because I do think for consistency's sake, they need to more or less read the same,
Exactly.
but
But we don't vote with you guys anyway.
this wasn't this wasn't my big issue. I could figure it out
It's
even
been
though it
an
was
issue
kinda.
for 8 years that I know of, just,
Comes up every year.
Yeah, it's kinda unwieldy looking and everybody will see, what do you mean you voted
Is it
favorable action, but you all voted against it? Well, so I can sort of see the point, but,
What happens when you split too, so you gotta have that clear.
yeah,
But we
exactly.
always make it clear underneath.
We do, because we put
No,
both.
everybody does. They do.
Yeah, if you get a 2-2-1 vote,
Right.
then what does that mean? You didn't vote favorable action, you didn't vote unfavorable action, you just voted neutral action, I guess.
Right.
I mean, is that what you call it,
Essentially, yeah,
neutral
cancel each
action?
other.
Tie action? I mean,
Right.
it's all semantics, but somebody's got to figure it out. And the other thing is, Madam Moderator needs to be included in that discussion, because it's her
Exactly.
body that's gonna have to decipher whatever it is we do. So, we'll see.
we'll see.
The deadline for getting it to you, Kelly, is April 7th, I believe?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Certainly should have it figured out by then.
We're going to do a special too, Kelly, is that April 7th? Where we're going to print it out?
will have to be that setting for the selectmen.
Okay.
And the thing on, it will be the 8th for voting. So that's when it all has to be done.
All right, so I will entertain do we really need to vote on Articles 1 and 2?
Yeah,
We
Yes,
really
do.
do? Okay.
Madam Moderator, I move the favorable action for Article number 1.
Second.
All those in favor of favorable action on Article number 1?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? How many we got here? 1, 2, 8, wow.
How many we got here? So we're 600.
David's.
David.
We have 7.
Where's Dave?
Well, we got 7 on that one, so.
Oh, David stepped
David's
out to
not
go to
here.
potty.
Where'd he go?
7-0.
He told me he was for.
He was for electing, okay.
We're voting for him.
Even though his last name is Hurd, I was the only one that heard it.
Madam Chairman, I move that we move favorable action for Article number 2.
Second.
I have a motion for favorable action on Article number 2, recurring business. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
0.
All right. All right, Article number 3 is compensation of certain appointed officials. That's the clerk, the moderator, and the registrar, correct?
Yep.
Mr. Town Administrator?
That's correct.
Okay, and we do not have a number for those yet?
We do,
I
actually.
thought you did.
Okay, what's our numbers?
I can't
Who were the three? Was the clerk, the moderator,
It's the clerk, the moderator, and the registrar.
Register.
Is it registrar? I'm sorry.
Registrar.
Registrar.
We know we've got the per diem.
Rather than the number, is it an increased number over last year? That would be more.
No, well, we actually have to vote
We
on the
have to
number.
vote on the
No,
number.
no, no,
Yep.
thank you, okay.
Yeah, the registrar is $700, the moderator $118 per diem. And she does a great job saving you money by doing a
Yes.
quick meeting.
What was the last one?
118 per
118.
Per
diem.
meeting, we
Yeah.
got that. I mean, don't spend
The
all that.
registrar is 700 per annum, is that it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the clerk, I do not have that in front of me in my.
Okay, then we'll pass over that for
Don't
now.
pass them.
Pass 86.
So we need that one. All right, number 4 is Article number 4, our revolving funds.
Correct. That
Do we have the
include-
correct numbers in there first tryout?
Yep, looks like
Really?
it to me, and we've got the health department up to the 75,000.
Yep, I saw that.
The library should be all set at the 20,000. Well, I thought she had increased that to 30,000, but then they lowered it to 20 again or something. I'll double check
Okay.
with that.
So these are correct.
We all understand what the revolving funds are for? If at any time you don't, speak up and ask, okay? All right, don't be afraid to stop me and ask, because I'm gonna keep flying right on.
No, you wanna know what? It got carried over on the COA again, the user fees and fundraising for the use of the fund.
What was
That's
that?
now- In the, on the COA activities,
Yeah,
it's, we've got the revenue source and then you have use of fund. It looks like revenue source carried over to use of the fund. So in other words, where you see use of fund for COA activities,
yeah,
user fees and fundraising, does yours say that?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Wrong?
Because you can't, I mean, the user fees and fundraising are the revenue source, they're not how the funds would be used. It should be essentially what's above it, program supplies, equipment, contracted instructor, and any other related.
So what do you want?
Oh, I see, under activities, it carried over. This, right, it's just like there's a typo in the middle there. So we just gotta fix that.
Fundraising, cross out fundraising.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Yeah,
Judy.
under the use of funds section.
The whole thing I'm using is, I guess he said.
Oh, just under use of funds, not under
Correct.
revenue sources.
Yeah, the revenue source is correct.
Thank you, sir. Happy lost with that.
And then it's, the exact opposite for social recreation. If you see where it says program, supplies, equipment contracted for revenue source.
Under revenue source.
I need Tom, because these numbers here change.
There's some sort of weird typo down here in your shellfish line.
No, that's just Quahog.
It's whatever
Is
that,
that a proposition?
propagation, I think. is in-
Propagation.
That's a weird, strange way of spelling propagation in there.
Okay.
I've got on mine, it says it's PROPAG.
No, in the center, under use of fund,
Use the funds.
it says shellfish propos, then there's a 5 in the middle of there.
Propitafian.
Propagate.
For 30,000?
Okay.
I voted for you on some of these.
Do you want to vote on Article 4 with the edits
Yep.
in lieu? Or would you rather wait until it's edited?
The edited proposition 4. So moved.
Do I hear a motion to vote?
Second.
It's been,
We have to vote on the changes first?
Where are the
No.
edits?
As edited, we just
As
edited
edited.
As
the
edited.
typos, that's all.
All right.
and you made the
I
motion,
made the
and
motion.
someone else
I need
seconded
a
it.
second.
No, what are the edits?
Second your first one. Do we?
We didn't do
Second.
the
Title
second.
one.
We didn't do the 3. Is that what your question was? We
Just a
didn't-
point of order on your vote. This is the printed warrant that you're looking at now. And so there's no amending in here, there's no changing in here. That has to be done on the floor. You can make your favorable action votes with the understanding that it will be amended and corrected at town meeting in the motion.
Oh, I'm not complicating things with that. I mean,
Yeah.
this is typos.
Yeah, oh, it
These
is.
are basically
But
basic
you
typos.
can't, we can't fix them here, we can only,
Right.
You can't use
the,
what?
the motion on the screen will be one of those ones you talk about that's
Right.
just a wee bit different than what you
Yeah.
see right here. So
Yeah.
that's how it'll get corrected.
It'll be as we amended it. That's what'll show up on the screen.
Hopefully.
One hopes. I make no guarantees.
All right, I have a motion on the floor for favorable action on Article number 4.
And it's been seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? All right, now we're back to 8.
Yeah, we got 8 now.
All right, Article 5 is our capital plan. Do we have a capital plan right now, sir?
I would pass over on that one.
Okay. And Article 16 will be the budget, and I don't believe we're ready to talk about that yet either.
Yep, that's Article 6.
Article 6?
Six.
Did I say 7? I'm sorry. I need a glass of water, but there's no cups in that bubbler down the thing, really?
Well, the school takes them away at night so you don't steal them.
Obviously.
Times are
Gotta
tough.
remember to bring my own coffee cup from now on. All right. Article 7, acceptance of property release for Merchants Way Train Station.
Yeah, this is,
Explanation, please.
the Mass Rail and MBTA have expressed a willingness to surrender reversionary rights that they hold in the old train station property on Merchants Way. This is not to be confused with the new Cape Flyer station facility. A town meeting vote is required to accept this property interest and would give the town the ability to more fully utilize the property. They've already turned over, we already have the property, but it's got reversionary language,
Right.
reversionary language in it, and also requires you have to have bathrooms and X amount. So now if we actually want to utilize this, if we can get them to release those issues to us, we can turn that into a feasible, some sort of feasible operation rather than just a building sitting there.
Okay.
So this will not increase in any way our commitment to put money into a building. It will
No.
not cost the town anything.
No,
We're maintaining this now anyway, aren't we?
yeah, we already
Okay.
are. It would give us
It
the
takes-
opportunity to develop it
To
if we
develop it
want.
now if we want
There
to.
were
Yeah.
restrictions in it, they just get rid of it.
Right, so.
I make a motion that we
I'll second that.
Favorable action on Article 7, on
Yes.
Article 7?
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained?
I think we should pass over 8.
8, we were gonna schedule them.
Yeah, 8, we're going to discuss, we're gonna bring in, the superintendent, or I'm gonna invite him in. Do you know if they're planning on doing a presentation with the Board of Selectmen?
He usually does both. I mean, ideally, I'd love to try and coordinate a meeting, so
Yes.
not dragging him out twice.
Right, exactly.
Can you keep us in the loop with that, and we'll see if we can schedule ourselves at the same time?
Yeah, would it be,
I'm gonna be
If
there
we're
on the
doing-
6th, then.
what's that?
I said I'm gonna be there on the 6th, so I can ask him to come in.
Yeah.
if he wants.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean,
Before that.
we haven't come
We should ask
between,
him, yeah.
we usually, he comes to the finance committee, the selectmen, then to town meeting, and.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
We combine them.
But if we could, like I said, if we can do a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen at some point,
Yep.
then,
Or even, Madam Moderator, Madam, excuse me.
well, I just got a promotion, you're out of here.
It's all yours.
Even if we,
She's after the money.
even if we can, I know that he generally goes into the selectmen meeting, even if we can have some delegates go in and just bring it into the finance committee, whatever, have some of our members go or whatever.
Well, I know they got a lot going on, so it would be nice, really, to get the full presentation as to what their budget is.
Yes.
And why. I think that's really important. And like I said, I don't wanna send them out twice. If we could do it once with the Board of Selectmen, I think that would be a good idea.
I think it's a good idea too.
I think so.
Okay, so we'll put that out there.
Then you put,
All right, Water Pollution Control Facility Enterprise Fund. And what is our whole number? We have a whole number, is that?
Yeah, for the enterprise fund, I would think, I know that you had Mr. Campino come before you and such.
It is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know if that's his final budget, because that was his second revision on there, so you might want to hold off on,
Okay.
on this one right now. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if there's additional questions after that, because it's going to tie in with the stabilization fund right after.
So what are you saying about the stabilization fund?
It's just the next article. Just the next article.
We should do it? I mean, we have to wait for
It's
that.
not like there's nothing to do with his budget.
Right.
It did originally, as part of his budget. He's changed his mind. He wanted the more capital within his budget. I would wait.
You would wait.
Well, because he put in, well, there's $1 million in this budget. So you're thinking that he's going to change that and go, maybe put some of it off?
I would just hold off on it.
Okay.
So you're gonna take the action of getting it squared away?
What's up?
You're gonna take the action of getting it squared away and then present it to us?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Bob. Madam Chair. But number 10 is just to create the fund. You gotta create it. 11 is to fund it. So,
Right.
you're gonna create it anyways, correct?
We were talking about 9.
Oh, not 9, I know you said that you were gonna wait.
We're gonna wait.
Then you're gonna
But,
move, then you said, I thought you said you were gonna wait on 9, 10, and 11.
No, I was talking about wait on 9. 10, I'm fine with creating a stabilization fund.
11 would be supplementary, you might wanna
Right.
wait on that,
11,
correct?
you want to wait, because
Right.
why is that in there? Are you supplementing it through the budget, which was the original idea? Now, again, like I'm saying, it's gone back to where it's spending all the capital within that budget.
So what you're saying is you can do 10 now and you can decide how to allocate.
Cause
it
you,
between-
All right, let me
Yep.
figure this,
Go
let me
ahead, go
ask
ahead.
this first, okay?
Yep,
Procedurally, just so the people at home understand, because we're all kind of mumbling here back and forth, and, the water pollution control facility, the original budget included over $1 million in capital expenses, okay? So we're gonna hold off on voting on their budget as first presented, because that may be under review. Creating a sewer capital stabilization fund is the idea of Article number 10.
Correct.
Now, Article number 11 is actually funding the stabilization fund.
Correct.
All right. If we fund a stabilization fund, if we establish a stabilization fund and then fund it, are all capital items specifically associated with the water pollution control facility out of that fund have to be voted every year on town meeting floor?
Yes.
Okay, so once we put that money in there, he can't just take it out in his budget and do what he needs to do. We have to take each capital item individually with the public's vote before these things are done.
Not only the public has to vote to not only transfer that money out, but to actually approve the capital item, and the capital item has to go through the capital planning committee first.
Okay, that's what I want to establish and make sure we understand procedurally
Right.
what this is going to do.
Right, eventually, if you, let's say you wanted to buy a $1 million widget, all right? You would need to first get the approval to buy the widget, and then second, you'd need to transfer the funds out.
The other alternative is just to leave it the way it is, and it comes out of a capital fund, and if there's no stabilization fund, then it's just one vote? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying there's no capital fund. This is to create a capital stabilization fund. If you create a capital stabilization fund, the only way to pull money out of that or put money in is through a town meeting action. And that's what everybody's concerned about. They want to make sure that if you put $1 million in there, that, you know, Derek, the superintendent, can't go in there and start spending willy-nilly. They want to make sure that the money in there is secure.
So what's the value of a stabilization fund then? Why would we vote to put one, establish one?
Because you can use it for future projects. You can use it when you have massive projects. It's going to depend really on the future, how the sewer commissioners want to operate. Do they want to put money into the capital stabilization fund every year through the ratepayers? Do you want to do it from retained earnings? What do you want to do?
Should wait till you have sewer commissioners.
Let me try to explain this in the most simple
Thank you.
understanding, okay? Traditionally, a lot of these projects, I mean, like anything in this town, that we haven't really taken care of our capital needs. Am I correct, David?
Absolutely.
Okay. And the situation with the sewer enterprise fund is no different, all right? Each year, we've been coming up with the budget for it to cover the expenses and what absolutely is necessary for capital repairs, all right? In the same manner that we've done in our day-to-day town budgets, all right? The idea is to start funding a capital fund specifically for the water pollution control facility for the future repairs, all right? Rather than trying to fund these things through the budget, their yearly budget, and just do the repairs necessary, all right? To better manage those capital items through funding it separately.
Okay, that fits the discussion we had about the value of making things enterprise funds, because then they can have a stabilization.
Well, these are all things that can be done through the enterprise fund concept, all right?
Right.
I can tell you that there was a great deal of concern through the years about the retained earnings, okay? And spending down those retained earnings for operating expenses, all right? That's not what they're supposed to be used for. They're supposed to be used for maintenance and repairs and capital items, all right? And I think this is just another step to getting, ensuring that that's gonna happen,
Yeah.
okay?
So it's to the town's benefit to have a stabilization fund as part of the sewer enterprise.
I think it's to the town's benefit. I just wanted the public and everybody on this board to understand how that's gonna operate before
Yeah,
you
no.
vote on this, what it's established for, and how it's going to operate,
Well, that's good, we need that.
okay?
Got that.
Good? right? Okay.
So, Madam
Go ahead,
Chairman,
Donna.
I make a motion that we vote favorable action on creating a sewer capital stabilization fund.
All right, I have a motion for favorable action on Article 10 to create the Sewer Capital Stabilization Fund. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, so we're gonna pass that.
800.
0. We're going to,
Limits you a little.
Not really.
Yeah, it does.
No, it
we're
doesn't.
going to hold
make a
off on
decision
Article
after
9 and Article 11 to revisit the entire budget for water pollution control.
Right, yeah, Article 11, when this was proposed, the director there, the superintendent had stated he wanted to use monies from the operating budget to be put into the capital stabilization. That's where this transfer was. But you see that instead of about 600,000 that we have in FY15, there's now $1 million worth of capital in the FY16 budget. So that's where decided on a different tack. Now, it's not been told to me that he wants to use retained earnings to transfer over there right now, because otherwise there is no other funding source, and this article is moot, should just be passed over.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I have a question, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
We just created a stabilization fund. Can you create a stabilization fund and not fund it? That's my
yeah.
question.
That's the beauty of it. You
Yeah,
can create
you
as
can
many
do
funds as you want.
I just wanted to ask.
Yeah,
If you can create it without funding it, then I got no problem with creating it.
That was a super.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna clear that up there for stupid people like myself.
No,
There are no stupid questions.
I'm gonna stick Jeff on you.
All right, hang on a minute, where am I? All right, Article 12 is appropriation to EMS.
Yeah.
Huh? Which figure do we actually put in that?
You should have, was it the 1.2 on there? I'm sorry, I don't know.
EMS total 1330177, is that where you were going? That's
Yeah.
what I have here.
That should be what we have in all the budgets right there. And if something's going, on this one, I'm pretty positive on it. If anything's going to change, if we're looking to maybe purchase something else, I'll bring it before the finance committee. But this one, I'm pretty safe on right now.
Okay, so right now the number is 1,330,000.
Say it out loud, please, Donna.
$1,330,177.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And how you're voting, it's going to be different than the, obviously, than the motion. The motion will be a little different because you'll reference $80,000 in capital, wages and salaries.
The total.
Right,
Yeah.
and then you need to list what the revenues are going to be to offset it as well.
Right.
so.
But that's all gonna be taken care of.
The total is still gonna be
Yeah,
this.
right.
Yes.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we vote favorable action on Article number 12 to appropriate $1,330,177.
To be offset by the receipts.
Receipts.
I have a
Second.
motion. And a second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? All right, new fees for weights and measures.
Yeah, the adoption of the fee schedule will replace the existing fee schedule, which is more than 10 years old, and it will bring the fees in line with neighboring towns, and it will make the position self-supporting. Right now, the position is actually costing us money. It's an unbenefited position. Basically, he goes out and charges when he's doing the work, and it's out of the inspectional services office, so it comes out of the expenses line. He does have a separate account, but you can only pay some expenses out of that, so. we'd like to increase this and see if we can't make it self-supporting.
Was it a huge jump? I don't know what the fees were now. Do you remember just offhand?
No, I can bring the list. It's just, it's brought it in line with everybody else, and if you look at this, this is, you know, it's not gonna blow anybody's budget on.
Madam
The
Chairman,
the only other thing we could do is to change the period between inspections. Is that right, to make this thing make money or break even?
Goes up.
I
mean,
can't
this is
see,
the businessman's out on the street and he has to pay this guy, come in and do
Yep.
whatever.
Exactly.
And it's just another annoyance, another draw on his revenue. So, I mean, I'm just
Oh, you're saying
saying,
make it longer, but double the rate or something like that?
keep the rates the same and just have it instead of every year, make it every 14 months or whatever. I don't know how it works out, but
The state,
there
the
is an
state
alternative
controls
to
that.
raising the fee.
The state
Is to
controls that.
Increase the interval.
The intervals are controlled by the state.
Yeah.
that's,
Then we could move out of Massachusetts.
We're not paying any mandates, and we're moving out of it.
I mean, we already have the highest personal debt of
Madam,
any state in the union.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Dominic.
Tom, you're on the right, you're on the right thought. Derek, why are you saying raise the fees to make it break even?
Well, I guess
There isn't anyone who goes into business and does anything that breaks even. If you
wants to
can't
make
make money
money.
at it, don't do it. Go up a little higher and make a couple bucks. You're not killing anybody here, with these fees are so small, if you doubled them, you wouldn't hurt anyone's budget.
I don't think we want to double
No.
them.
Well, that
We
was
do
just,
want to bring them in conjunction with
but
with the area towns, and we need to meet
bring-
the requirements of
so-
whatever the state says.
all right, but so are other towns just breaking even in that department?
I don't
Or are they
know.
making money? Make money, that's all I'm saying, I'll let it go and I'll vote.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we vote favorable action on Article number 13 and approve the new fees for weighing and measuring devices.
I'll second that.
I have a motion for favorable action on Article 13. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
I'll behave, I'll vote for it.
That's okay, Dominic.
It's all right.
It's all right. We agree, thank you. Let's
All right,
abstain.
moving right along.
Make money.
All right, now Article 14 is the proposal to petition the general court to accept manufactured homes in our 40B assessment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit lengthy on there, but the explanation is nice and simple. At present, the state does not allow us to count manufactured homes as part of our 10% quota for 40B housing. This article seeks special legislation that would authorize Wareham to count these properties as part of the 10% quota.
Hallelujah.
What,
Discussion,
I agree with the
anybody?
hallelujah. How do you explain that to, what does it mean to us if they are accepted? Is it more money? Is it, what do you mean? Something, what do we do different?
We don't have to, we won't be having to build 40Bs.
We'll already have
We'll
enough.
lose money.
We'll have our, more than our
Protects our
quota.
zoning and planning.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's the best way you put it, Tom.
What did you say, Tom?
Protect zoning.
Protects our planning and zoning, because otherwise, if you don't have the 10%, a builder can come in and put them in.
Super, that's a good, I'm
Exactly.
just looking for an explanation for Grandma. to-
Well,
Why are we doing
we'll
that?
have a great explanation, I'm sure, at that meeting.
I make a motion for favorable action on Article 14.
Second.
All those in favor of favorable action on Article 14, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, the CPC articles for the boat ramp, the tennis courts, and the playground came before us prior to their seeing, or going to CPC. They are required to come back for our approval. So we will be inviting the three to come back
Madam Chairman?
before passing on these articles?
On the tennis courts, there was an agreement the school was going to pay the maintenance after they were done, which obviously affects the school budget. So somehow that has to get ironed out as to what that means.
I think that they raised half the money themselves.
Well, I would definitely
But
jot
to
that
build
in.
them, but then he said he had an agreement
Well, that would definitely be a
the-
question to jot down, and be sure to ask
when he
Mr.
comes.
Sweat when he
Yeah,
returns.
because we need to understand that.
So we'll have to arrange to bring all three of those back.
These aren't financial articles that are gonna affect the town though in any way.
These are CPC articles to
Yeah.
spend
Yeah.
CPC money.
Exactly.
Okay, Article 18 is the CPC reserves. This is the requirement to set aside to preservation, open space, affordable housing, their administration costs, and it's based on whatever their expected revenue are. Do you want to go ahead and vote on this, or do you want to see CPC before doing this? Or anybody who doesn't understand?
This is housekeeping, isn't it?
That's all
Yeah,
it
it's
is,
a
is
housekeeping
housekeeping.
article. Do
Exactly.
you don't understand?
They're just spending their own revenues.
No.
No, no.
What?
No, they're appropriating it.
Yeah. What CPC has to do is, depending on what their expected revenue is, she gets regular reports from the state as to what they're gonna be getting back for funds. And they are required to set aside, and I don't wanna, I don't know what the percentage is, do you remember?
10% each.
It's 10% each, thank you, Mr. Titlebaum. 10% of their expected revenue has to go in these pockets, okay? Historic preservation, open space, affordable housing, administration, or those, then they put into administration 5%, I think it is 5%.
Yep.
Because they have to spend that money in those specific areas, okay? It's required by law to be broken up in that way. Okay, it's pretty much a housekeeping.
Okay.
So I move,
But the money doesn't come from our budget.
no, no, no,
No,
no.
it comes specifically from the CPC, that line on your tax that says community preservation, it's that extra line.
Madam Chairman, I move favorable action on Article 18,
In town.
In town.
CPC article for the FY 16 reserves.
I have a second on it by Tom.
Second.
Thank you, Tom.
All those in favor of favorable action on Article 18? Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
I have a CPC question.
Go ahead.
Derek, on the Tremont Dam, the Parker Dam, I guess, have we borrowed that money?
No, we have another year before we have to do anything with that.
We have not?
We have another year before we would be
Another
compelled
year?
to take
Is that what you're
action.
saying?
No, just like we told town meeting, we're looking into it, Mom, make sure we clear up all the lines of ownership and such before we would borrow anything.
So it has to come to the town meeting again to be,
No, it's been
Okay.
authorized, but,
okay.
You said you weren't gonna do it right away, because people are asking those questions, so.
yeah. No, it's fine, it's,
Well, legally, you gotta clear up, correct?
you're right, we wanna make sure we clear everything up. And again, it's what we told town meeting, and
Does that make,
shocker, it's what we're doing. So-
does that make, is it happening? I mean, is it,
Yes.
good.
All right.
I'm not gonna elaborate on it, not because I'm being coy, but,
Yeah,
I
no,
hear
as
you.
long as it's not dead in the water.
no.
It's not breaking anytime soon.
Listen, I'm the one that said we were gonna have extra money in our snow and ice budget, so.
We don't, I don't know, there's no sitting on the dam, who knows?
What year?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the damn thing?
All right, Article 19, roof and boiler for the Deacon's School. Would you like to elaborate, Mr. Town Administrator?
Yeah, article, let me pull that. That's going to the MSBA, correct? I believe that's an MSBA one, where they will be seeking to go through the MSBA accelerated loan program.
67%.
It's 67% back, yeah.
Yeah, you
It's
can't guarantee
accepted.
the 67.5% that we got, but that's what we received last time. I mean, it is it's a heck of a deal, let's
Yeah.
just say it that way.
Exactly, no matter what we get back, it's a savings.
It is.
And obviously, there'll be some greater efficiencies gained through it and some cost savings as well, so, and I would, the only problem is you have, even the 22 or 32 and a half, excuse me, you still have to pay that back, but, you know, we have to find it, so.
Madam Moderator, I make a motion,
Hang
favorable
on,
action?
hang on one second, I'm trying to read some.
How much money are we talking about for the feasibility study?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, there's no dollar figure here.
Yeah, they would have to provide that when they come forward. This high school roof was, what was it? Was it
49,000.
Yeah, and of which that's reimbursable too. So I would say, I would hope it's less than that, but let's consider it. Let's use that as a starting point. And they would have to, if they're going to pay for that, it'd have to be out of their budget. The town wouldn't fund that.
I think that's gonna need a question answered as to.
There's no dollar sign, you can't.
There's
put
no
it on.
dollar figure and no
What?
funding source
Oh,
right now.
well, they have $350,000 for the roof for the Deacon's, don't they?
That's not for this.
No. This is just the feasibility.
Feasibility, no?
study.
This is
Oh,
just,
this is just the
this
feasibility
is just the
study.
feasibility
Oh,
study.
okay, I withdraw my motion.
So we need a dollar figure on this and we need a funding source.
Study. So you need a study to tell you that your roof is broken and you need a better heater, that makes a lot, that's spending money wise, isn't it?
This isn't
That
right.
is the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
You have to spend money to make money.
You have to line someone's pockets.
Yeah, I'm happy now, I'm happy now.
What?
I'm happy he said that. I'm all excited.
What did he say?
You have to, he
Spend
was
money
happy,
to
spend
make
money to
money.
make money.
Yeah, that's, I mean,
This
it
is
is,
101.
it's part of it's part of what's required to go through the MSBA program. I understand we also, if we remember, the number that's going to come out of this most likely will be drastically higher than the final number, not because we're getting the best deals in the world, but through the MSBA, you need to make sure that you're putting everything in there, and they almost do overkill, so.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
The roof is leaking. Could you please come in and give us a study and tell us if we need a new roof
We need
because
new
it's
wiring.
leaking?
Rewire the joint.
No, it's more than that. You put together
Okay, it's getting.
Oh, I
way
know,
bigger.
I've done
and bid
roof
proposal.
consultants, I understand that, but
I'll-
it just,
I'll tell you, one of the best things that was done with the high school roof, and I would
yes.
almost suggest that they do this again, is having the clerk of the works, hiring an outside body. They've tried to use I remember they were trying to use Mr. Gifford on it for some items when they were doing CPC, and I mean, the guy was working himself to death and trying to keep up with some of those other projects. So when you use a clerk of the works, it pays for itself.
oh, absolutely,
You know.
absolutely. I agree with you.
Okay, so that's gonna take some discussion. Article 20, you don't have anything to do with this either, but this was, I was told, is a,
Madam Chair, can you refresh my memory, MGL Chapter 148?
this,
What,
yeah,
boarding house
this is a
sprinklers?
petition article inserted by the two fire districts, water districts, whichever you
Oh,
wanna call them.
Okay,
About
thank you.
Sprinklers.
Sprinklers,
Yes, thank you,
sprinklers.
thank you.
So we're going to probably invite them in to give us their full updates
That would be good.
on their motivation for wanting to do this as well. And that just brings us back to Bouchant Way.
Ian's Lynn Road.
I see.
Is this a go this time, yes?
Ellen
Ellen
said all
said
that,
yes.
Ellen said all the Ts and Is were dotted and crossed.
Can somebody get back to the finance committee as to whether all the Ts and Is have been dotted and crossed?
We shall.
Okay. Okay, then.
You will get more than a Gallic shrug.
Good, good. All right,
So,
that's that.
So we got a good,
that's a good jump on it.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is one of the smallest annual town meeting warrants seen in a
Yeah.
while.
this is great.
The one-nighter.
one
Oh,
thing.
we're going to still have the special. We know we'll have the mid-year transfers. There'll be a couple items on there as well that we're going to have to do, so. Hopefully, we will be able to actually put some money into the OPEB trust fund too, that we just established, which would be wonderful.
Okay, be interesting to figure out where you're gonna find that.
Finance committee budget.
Uh-huh. Alrighty then, do we have anything
$1.89.
else for the town administrator or from the town administrator?
Thank you all for your time. I know, at the last meeting, when we were finishing up the all-day finance committee meeting on Thursday, I want to let you know, I appreciate everybody that came. It's a long day. You dedicate a lot of your time, not just then, but during the nights and outside of here. So I do appreciate it, and I appreciate you listening to the staff and really hearing what they have to say.
It was a long day, but I think it was very productive. I was appreciative of everybody being here for as much time that they could put in here. I think that was great. And it went very smoothly. Everybody's, trying to work together to get the job done, so that's really great. And we appreciated the pizza and the donuts and the muffins and the coffee and all that too.
I was just the pizza. So
Pizza.
and the munchkins.
And the munchkins, pizza and munchkins. All right then. I will try to go through,
And Bonnie, again, for the record, that was not town funds for those.
no, that was not town funds, that was all
For everybody
donated.
listening.
Pass the hat. I'll try to go through as we can and do the explanations, the recommendations, thank you, as quickly as we can.
Are you all set with me, Bonnie?
What was that?
Are you all set with me?
I am all set with you, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night, Derek.
All right.
We only had half a day today.
We just flip that whole switch off, what
I
happens?
know I do.
Those other things should be off too.
He needs a note from us to give to us.
Nothing, open the town hall till 2 noon.
There you go.
Yeah, we're not using it.
Oh, sure.
All right,
Yeah,
so
so I
where
said
are we
the
at
other day.
here?
No. It's supposed to be open at 8. Good room. But the school took 2 hours.
What are we doing, calendar?
Derek, can we get together on that, solar panels too?
What's that?
Can I give you a call to sit down with you about the solar panels?
Yeah, please.
For the housing authority?
Yeah, I think it's something that,
You can help us with?
yeah, absolutely.
All right, so, our next meeting will be March 4th.
Okay.
Kelly and I will see who we can get in out of that list that we're compiling between us. I would like to get as much of the regular town meeting warrant cleaned up as possible, because then we receive the special town meeting on the 18th. And we won't have, we won't have much time to complete that.
Yeah.
So,
We won't be seeing people on that, that's for sure.
right, let's plan on, meeting on the 4th, and we'll try to get these people back in, and making, to get these other ones cleared up as quickly as possible. Some of the number stuff, we're not gonna have until the very last minute, we know how that works out. The budget itself is still gonna be a work in progress between the school committee, the town administrator, the board of selectmen, and us coming up with a balanced budget. So we're not really gonna know what that is until we go to print. They've got till then to decide on how they're gonna meet in the middle on that. I have read, 2 people have submitted their, we were asked by the town administrator to come up with our top priorities. I received information from 2 of you, and that's good.
Priorities for what?
He asked the Board of Selectmen what their top priorities were as far as the budget and where we want the town to go.
Oh,
And so he asked us if we'd like to provide us with our top priorities, okay? So we'll talk about that again maybe next week. So if you're still thinking about it, still working on it, send me what would be your top 3, top 4 priorities. There's definitely,
or revisions, cuts.
yeah. There is a trend I've already seen in the 2 that I've read, so,
I'd be doing cuts.
that's interesting. Does anybody have anything else?
Just have the minutes.
How many minutes did we? didn't have-
Yep,
Did we have
we have
minutes?
approval of meeting minutes of February the 4th, 2015. That was a regular meeting, right?
I don't think I was here that meeting.
We'll do them together. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes on February 4th, 2015, and February 18th, 2015.
Second.
I would prefer to have that done separately, as I was not here on the.
Yeah, I
vote.
think there was a couple
Very
people that were
good.
absent.
I'll retract that motion. I will make a new motion, approval of the minutes on February 4th, 2015.
Second.
All those in favor of approval of the meeting minutes for February the 4th, 2015?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
I make another motion, Madam Chair, for approval of the minutes on February 18th, 2015.
Second.
We have a motion for approval of meeting minutes for February 18th, 2015. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? We were all here, so that's good. So we will be meeting next on March the 4th here at 6:30. And then we may be able to take 1 week off. We'll see how well we do here, but before we get here, the other.
I make a motion that we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
First tonight.
Okay.